I wasn't supposed to be there. That's the first thing I remember thinking when I saw him, standing under purple lights, one hand wrapped around a glass, laughing at something a guy whispered in his ear like it was the most natural thing in the world. My boss, Griffin Hale, in a gay club. For a few seconds, I genuinely wondered if I'd had too much to drink already. Maybe the bass was messing with my head. Maybe the lights were playing tricks on my eyes. Maybe exhaustion from another brutal week at work had finally snapped something in my brain. But no, it was him. Same broad shoulders that made every suit look custom-made. Same perfectly styled dark hair. Same sharp jawline that half the marketing department had an unspoken crush on but pretended not to. And the same calm, controlled confidence that made meetings feel like presentations and presentations feel like verdicts. Except this Griffin wasn't behind a conference table. This Griffin was smiling, relaxed, soft, alive in a way I'd never seen before. I ducked behind a pillar almost instinctively, heart slamming against my ribs like I'd just been caught doing something illegal, which was ridiculous. I was a 26-year-old man in a club on a Friday night. There was nothing wrong with that. But Griffin seeing me here, that felt complicated. Because at work, Griffin Hale was more than just my boss. He was the boss. The kind of leader who didn't raise his voice but never needed to. The kind of guy who remembered tiny details about projects from months ago and could dismantle a bad idea with a single raised eyebrow. He was intimidating, impossibly competent, and frustratingly attractive. Not that I'd ever admitted that out loud. I leaned against the pillar, trying to slow my breathing while pretending to scroll through my phone like I hadn't just spotted my professional superior grinding lightly to an early 2000s remix. Elliot. I flinched. My friend Marcus appeared beside me, holding 2 drinks and looking amused. You look like you just saw a ghost. I hesitated, then subtly nodded toward the dance floor. Marcus followed my gaze. His eyebrows shot up. Oh, he whispered, clearly delighted. Oh, that is messy. Shut up, I muttered. That's your boss, right? Griffin. Something? Hale. Marcus took a slow sip of his drink, grin widening. Your hot boss. I never said he was. You didn't have to. I rubbed my face, suddenly very aware of the warmth creeping up my neck. I'd spent 8 months working under Griffin. 8 months of carefully curated professionalism. Of rehearsed emails and overthinking casual hallway conversations. Of trying not to notice how his sleeves rolled up during late meetings or how his voice dropped when he got serious about a campaign idea. And now he was here, in my space, in a place where I wasn't Elliot the junior strategist trying to prove himself. I was just Elliot, which somehow made this worse. Relax, Marcus said. He hasn't seen you. As if summoned by fate, Griffin turned. Our eyes met instantly. There's something uniquely horrifying about accidental eye contact with someone you know in a place where neither of you expected to be seen. It's like your brain crashes for half a second while trying to process 2 conflicting realities. Office Griffin. Club Griffin. Boss. Man. His expression flickered through the same confusion I felt. Recognition. Surprise. And then something softer. Not panic. Not embarrassment. More like curiosity. I straightened before I even realized I was doing it, like muscle memory from the office had taken over. Because of course my posture improved the second my boss looked at me even in a nightclub. Griffin said something to the guy next to him, handed off his drink, and started walking toward me. Abort, I whispered. Marcus laughed. Too late. Every step Griffin took felt louder than the music. Up close, the differences were even more obvious. No tie. Top button undone. Sleeves rolled just enough to look intentional but effortless. A faint smile playing at the corner of his mouth like he was in on a joke I hadn't heard yet. He stopped in front of me. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The bass vibrated through the floor. Lights flashed across his face, turning familiar features into something almost cinematic. Well, Griffin finally said, voice warm with disbelief. This is unexpected. I let out a nervous laugh. I could say the same. His smile widened slightly. Not the polite corporate one. A real one. Do we acknowledge this? He asked quietly. Or pretend Monday never happened? Something about that broke the tension immediately. I smiled back. I vote for pretending Monday doesn't exist. Strong proposal, he said. There was a pause, not awkward exactly, but charged. Like we were both recalibrating, trying to figure out who we were allowed to be in this moment. Because he wasn't my boss here, and I wasn't his employee. We were just two guys who had accidentally collided outside the structure that defined us. Griffin glanced toward the bar, then back at me. Can I buy you a drink, Elliot? The way he said my name casual, unguarded sent a small, unexpected ripple through my chest. I hesitated, not because I didn't want to, but because I had a feeling that saying yes might change something I wasn't ready to name yet. Still, I nodded. Yeah, I said. I'd like that. And as we started walking toward the bar together, I couldn't shake the feeling that this night had just quietly split my life into before and after. I just didn't know how much after was about to matter. The walk to the bar felt surreal. At work, Griffin always moved with purpose, quick, efficient strides, like every second had measurable value. Here he walked slower, relaxed, hands casually in his pockets, like he wasn't managing a team of 30 people and multimillion-dollar accounts during the day. Like he was just Griffin. I became hyper-aware of everything. The way strangers glanced at him, the way he leaned slightly closer to hear me over the music, the faint scent of something clean and woodsy when we stopped at the bar. What are you drinking? He asked. A tequila soda. He raised an eyebrow. Bold. It's simple. Efficient, he corrected, a teasing note in his voice. I laughed. Is that my performance review? Relax, he said, handing the bartender his card. You're off the clock. That did something to me. Off the clock. Felt like permission. We stepped aside once we had our drinks, finding a quieter corner near a dimly lit hallway that led toward the restrooms. The music was still loud, but at least we didn't have to shout. For a second, we just looked at each other. I'd seen Griffin in high-pressure negotiations. I'd seen him dismantle client objections without breaking a sweat. I'd seen him handle internal conflict like a chess player 5 moves ahead. But this was different. There was something guarded in his eyes now. Not cold, careful. So, he said finally, swirling his drink slightly, how long have you been coming here? Couple of years. He nodded slowly. I thought so. I blinked. You thought so? You're very comfortable, he said. You weren't scanning the room when you walked in. You knew exactly where to go. I stared at him. You noticed that? I notice a lot of things, Elliot. Right? Of course he did. That was part of what made him so good at his job. And apparently so good at reading me. And you? I asked. How long have you been coming here? He hesitated. That was new. Griffin Hale did not hesitate. A while, he said carefully. Not consistently, but long enough. There was a weight to that answer. Long enough. I took a sip of my drink, trying to steady my nerves. Does anyone at work know? His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. No. The bass dropped again on the dance floor, vibrating through the walls. Somewhere nearby, someone laughed loudly. The world kept moving, but the air between us felt still. I don't exactly advertise my personal life at the office, he continued. I prefer to keep things compartmentalized. Compartmentalized. That sounded exhausting. Is it because you're the boss? I asked quietly. His eyes flicked up to mine. Yes. No sugarcoating. No deflection. Just honesty. There's a certain expectation, he added. Perception matters, especially in leadership. I understood that more than I wanted to. Corporate spaces liked diversity in theory. In practice, it was always more complicated. So this is your off-the-record life, I said lightly. A small smile returned. Something like that. There was another pause. You're not surprised, he said suddenly. About me. I held his gaze. I guess I'm not, I admitted. I mean, I didn't know. But I'm not shocked. His expression shifted. How come? I shrugged, trying to sound casual. You don't talk about dating. Ever. No stories. No, my girlfriend and I went to Napa. Nothing. He smirked slightly. You've been analyzing me. You're my boss. It's kind of my job. That's not what I meant. The way he said it softer, almost playful, made my stomach flip. We both knew what he meant, and neither of us corrected it. A group of guys stumbled past us toward the restroom, laughing loudly. Griffin instinctively placed a hand at the small of my back to guide me out of their way. The air shifted. "I should probably ask," he said, voice lower now. "Is this strange for you?" I knew what he was asking. Was I uncomfortable? Was this inappropriate? Was I regretting saying yes to the drink? I shook my head slowly. "No," I said honestly. "It's not." That seemed to surprise him. "In fact," I added before I could overthink it, "I kind of like seeing this version of you." His expression softened in a way I had never witnessed inside office walls. "And which version is that?" "The one who doesn't look like he's about to restructure a department." He laughed a real, unfiltered laugh, and it hit me in the chest harder than the bass. "You're different too," he said. "How?" "Less guarded." That caught me off guard. "I'm not guarded at work." He gave me a look. I exhaled. "Okay, maybe a little." "You're very careful," he continued. "You choose your words precisely. You anticipate reactions." "That's survival," I said lightly. "It's impressive," he corrected. There was something in his tone that felt heavier than a compliment. More personal. For a moment, the club faded into background noise. It felt like we were standing in a quiet pocket carved out just for us. Two men who knew each other in one context suddenly seeing the outlines of something else. Something undefined. Dangerous, maybe, or maybe just honest. Griffin glanced toward the dance floor, then back at me. "Do you want to dance?" he asked. The question shouldn't have felt loaded. I swallowed and nodded. "Yeah," I said. "I do." His eyes darkened, not in a dramatic way, just in focus, intent. And when he reached for my hand to lead me toward the lights, I didn't hesitate. I let him, and somewhere in the back of my mind, I knew Monday was already going to feel very different. The dance floor was chaos in the best way. Bodies moving without rhythm or shame. Lights slicing through fog. Music loud enough to rattle your ribs and blur your thoughts. Griffin didn't hesitate once we stepped into it. At work, he always occupied space with authority measured, composed. Here, he let the music take over. Not wild, not reckless, just unrestrained. And that might have been hotter. I tried not to stare, but it was impossible not to notice the way his shoulders loosened, the way he smiled without calculating who might be watching. "You're thinking," he said. "I always am." "About." I hesitated, because the honest answer was, "This is a terrible idea. And also, I don't want it to stop." Instead, I said, "Monday." He exhaled a quiet laugh. "Of course you are." "You're not." "I am," he admitted. "But not in the way you think." That caught my attention. "How are you thinking about it?" He tilted his head slightly, eyes never leaving mine. "I'm thinking about whether I regret walking over to you." My heart skipped. "I don't," he said. The honesty in his voice made my pulse spike. Neither of us looked away. "This is complicated," I said quietly. "Yes. Dangerous, maybe?" A small nod. "Probably." "Then why does it feel so easy?" That question lingered between us. Griffin's expression softened. Not playful anymore. Not teasing. Honest. "Because this," he said quietly, "isn't the complicated part." I frowned slightly. "What is, then?" He held my gaze a second longer before answering. "Everything outside this room." The weight of that settled into me. He wasn't naive. He wasn't pretending this wouldn't ripple into our professional lives. He knew exactly what it meant. The hallway outside the dance floor felt like stepping into another world. The bass dulled into a distant pulse. The air cooled. Conversations replaced shouting. People leaned against walls, laughing softly, checking phones, stealing quiet moments between songs. Griffin's hand was still lightly wrapped around mine. Not gripping, just there, grounding. He led us toward a small lounge area near the back low couches. Dim amber lighting. A window overlooking the street where taxis crawled past like glowing beetles. We sat at opposite ends of the couch. A faint smile tugged at his mouth. "I'm not calm." "You look calm." "That's years of practice." That felt painfully believable. For a moment, Neither of us spoke. The silence wasn't awkward. It felt like both of us were carefully choosing which version of honesty to bring into this conversation. Griffin broke first. "Can I ask you something without it sounding like an interrogation?" "That depends," I said. "Is HR involved?" He huffed a quiet laugh. "No." "Then go ahead." His gaze settled on me, focused, but softer than the analytical look I'd seen across conference tables. "Did you ever think about me that way before tonight?" There it was, the question I'd been avoiding internally for months. I could lie, deflect, make a joke, but the entire night had been built on unexpected honesty. So I didn't. "Yes," I said. The word hung between us. Griffin didn't look shocked, just attentive. "Not in a dramatic way," I added quickly. "I wasn't fantasizing during meetings or anything, but yeah, I noticed you." His jaw flexed slightly, not discomfort, more like processing. "When did you know?" he asked. "I didn't," I said. "I just assumed you were private. Maybe straight, maybe not. It wasn't my business." "That must have been frustrating." I shrugged. "It was manageable." He studied me for a moment longer, then nodded slowly. "My turn," he said. I felt my pulse pick up. "I noticed you too." That landed harder than I expected. "Since when?" I asked quietly. "Early," he admitted. "You challenge ideas without being combative. You observe before speaking, and you don't perform for attention." I blinked. That wasn't what I expected him to notice. "You're describing my personality," I said. "Yes. That's what attracted you?" A small smile. "That and the way you bite the inside of your cheek when you're thinking." My stomach flipped, because I did that, constantly, and apparently he'd been watching long enough to know. "That feels unfair," I murmured. "Why?" "You're supposed to be intimidating, not observant in a soft way." He chuckled quietly. "I contain multitudes, Elliot." We both smiled at that, but the warmth faded into something heavier a second later, the reality neither of us could ignore. "The power dynamic," I said. Griffin nodded immediately. "Yes, I don't want anything to feel coercive," I continued, "or like I'm benefiting professionally. Or, it won't," he said firmly. The certainty in his voice made me pause. "If anything," he continued, "I would remove myself from decisions involving you before allowing that perception." That answer felt very Griffin. Thoughtful, decisive, protective in a way that didn't feel possessive. "You've thought about this," I said. "I think about consequences for a living." Fair again. A couple across the room laughed, pulling each other closer on a neighboring couch. The city lights flickered through the window behind Griffin, outlining his profile in soft gold. "I don't want to lose working with you," I admitted quietly. His eyes flicked back to mine. "You wouldn't. But things would change." Yes, that honesty was strangely comforting. No false reassurance, just reality. "And you're okay with that?" I asked. Griffin held my gaze. "I'm more concerned about missing something real because I was afraid of logistics." That sentence settled deep in my chest, because that was exactly what this felt like. Not reckless, not impulsive. "Are you afraid?" he asked softly. I considered the question. "Yes," I said. "Of what?" I met his eyes. "That this matters." A slow exhale left him, like that answer resonated more than the others. "It already does," he said. "Griffin," I said softly. "Yes. This is the part where people usually overthink and pull away." A small smile appeared. "Do you want to pull away?" I looked at our hands, then back at him. "No." Something warm flickered across his face, relief. Maybe. "I didn't plan for tonight," I admitted. "I did," he said. I blinked. "You plan to run into your employee and kiss him?" He chuckled quietly. "No. But I plan to stop avoiding my own life." That landed somewhere deep. "I've been working nonstop for years," he continued, telling myself I'd focus on everything else later. Relationships, dating, being visible. His thumb traced a slow line across my knuckles as he spoke, absent-minded, grounding. "Later kept moving," he said. I understood that. Too well. I moved to this city to be more open, I said. But somehow work became my personality. That happens. We sat there for a moment, two men recognizing the same quiet pattern in different ways. What changed tonight? I asked. Griffin looked at me like the answer was obvious. You did. My stomach flipped. That feels like an unfair amount of pressure. It's not pressure, he said softly. It's timing. Timing. The word echoed in my head. Because if this had happened a year ago, I might have panicked. If it happened 6 months from now, maybe one of us would be gone, promoted, relocated. But tonight we were here. Single. Curious. Aware. I keep replaying the moment I saw you across the floor, he said. Yeah. You looked surprised, he said, but not uncomfortable. I was mostly trying not to combust internally. That made him laugh, that soft, unguarded laugh I was starting to realize I liked far too much. I almost didn't walk over, he admitted. That surprised me. You? Yes. Why? He hesitated, choosing honesty again. Because I knew it would matter. Silence stretched between us, not empty, just full. I turned slightly toward him, studying his face in the warm light. The version of Griffin the first saw now wasn't disconnected from the one at work. It was layered onto it. The confidence, the thoughtfulness, the restraint. But here there was warmth, vulnerability, a softness he clearly didn't show often. I'm glad you did, I said. His gaze softened. Me too. A server passed by collecting empty glasses, and the brief interruption reminded me that we were still in public, still in the middle of a night that technically had hours left. What happens now? I asked quietly. Griffin didn't answer immediately. He watched our hands for a second, fingers loosely intertwined like it had always been that way. Now, he said, we don't rush to define something that just started. That felt wise. And tomorrow? I asked. We text, he said simply. I smiled. You text. Occasionally. I'm honored. I like that plan, I said. Another quiet moment passed. Comfortable now. Easy. The kind of silence that only exists when conversation isn't required to maintain connection. Across the room, the couple from earlier stood up, laughing as they headed back toward the dance floor. Griffin followed my gaze. Do you want to go back? He asked. To dancing? Yes. I considered it. The night felt different now, less about noise and escape, more about presence. But I also wasn't ready for it to end. Yeah, I said, but this time without existential conversations. He smirked. No promises. We stood, hands separating naturally but not reluctantly. As we walked back toward the music, Griffin's hand settled briefly at my back again. That same steady gesture from earlier. Only now it didn't feel accidental. The bass grew louder with each step. Lights flashed ahead. The familiar chaos of the dance floor opened around us. But something had shifted. We weren't strangers navigating attraction. We weren't boss and employee pretending nothing existed. We were two people who had acknowledged something real and chosen not to run from it. And as Griffin glanced at me, not checking, not questioning, just smiling, I realized the most surprising part of the night wasn't the kiss. It was how calm I felt afterward. Like whatever this was, it didn't need to be figured out immediately. It just needed to be lived. The music was faster now, something loud and shamelessly pop. The crowd jumped instead of swayed. Someone spilled a drink nearby. It was chaotic and alive and exactly what a Friday night was supposed to feel like. Griffin leaned closer to my ear. Do you always overthink this much while dancing? Only when I kiss my boss 15 minutes earlier. He laughed, actually laughed, and shook his head. You're enjoying this. I am. Good. There was something warm about that word. Good. Not possessive. Not controlling. At one point he spun me, not dramatically, just playfully, and I felt myself grin in a way I hadn't in months. Work Elliot didn't grin like that. Work Elliot was measured, strategic, polished. This version, I wasn't worried about Monday anymore. Not in that moment. I was just here. Griffin must have sensed the shift in me because he leaned in again, brushing his mouth near my ear. You look different. How? Less tense. I wasn't tense. You absolutely were. I rolled my eyes. He smiled knowingly. I like this version of you, he added quietly. I swallowed. That's unfair. Why? Because now I feel like I have to maintain it. You don't, he said instantly. That's the point. That stopped me. The music pulsed around us, but I felt oddly still inside. You don't have to perform with me, he continued, voice steady even over the noise. Not here. Not Monday. Not ever. That was dangerous, because I'd built my entire professional life on performance, on reading rooms, on anticipating what people needed from me. The idea of not doing that with him, it felt vulnerable in a way kissing hadn't. You're very sure of yourself, I said. He shook his head slightly. No, I'm just sure about this. The way he said it didn't feel dramatic, felt grounded, and that made it harder to dismiss. A group squeezed past us, and I instinctively grabbed his shirt to keep from getting separated. My fingers curled into the fabric without thinking. He noticed. His eyes flicked down briefly. You don't have to hold on that tight, he teased lightly. I didn't let go. Maybe I want to. That surprised both of us. A slow smile spread across his face. Not cocky, not smug, just pleased. He leaned closer again, not to kiss, just to speak. I'm not going anywhere. The words shouldn't have hit as hard as they did. But they did, because that was the unspoken fear in all of this. That this would be a moment, a secret, a mistake. That by Monday it would shrink into something awkward and unsaid. After another song, we stepped off the floor, slightly breathless. Griffin guided us back toward the bar, ordering water this time. Hydration is important, he said dryly. Is that management advice? It's human advice. We stood side by side, shoulders touching lightly. The noise around us felt softer now. Or maybe my head was just clearer. Can I ask something slightly uncomfortable? I said. He glanced at me. Go ahead. Have you dated anyone at work before? His jaw tightened briefly. No. Why? Because I don't mix those worlds, he said. And now? He looked at me for a long moment before answering. Now I'm considering breaking my own rule. That honesty made my chest tighten. Because of me? Yes. No hesitation. No joke to soften it. Just yes. I stared at my drink for a second, trying to steady the sudden rush of feeling. That's a lot, I murmured. It is. You don't even know if I snore. He huffed a quiet laugh. I'm willing to risk it. We stood there smiling at each other like idiots for a few seconds. And then something shifted in his expression. Not doubt, but seriousness. Elliot, he said. Yeah. If at any point this feels unbalanced, if you ever feel pressured, even unintentionally, I need you to tell me. The directness of that hit hard. I will. I mean it. I know. He studied my face like he was trying to read beyond my words. Satisfied, eventually. The music swelled again behind us, but neither of us moved to return to the dance floor. Instead, we stood there in a quiet pocket of shared awareness. It was late. People were thinning out. The night had shifted from wild to intimate. I should probably head out soon, I said reluctantly. He nodded. I was thinking the same. The idea of leaving felt heavier than it should have. Not because I thought this was ending, but because the bubble of tonight was about to meet real life. We walked toward the exit together. Cool air hit us the second the doors opened sharp, grounding, real. The street was quieter now. A few groups lingering outside, Ubers pulling up, the city humming in low tones instead of bass. We stopped just outside the entrance. This felt like another decision point. Griffin slid his hands into his pockets, studying me in the soft glow of the streetlights. Text me when you get home, he said. I smiled. That feels very domestic. Indulge me. Night wasn't what I expected, I said. No. But I'm glad it happened. His expression softened again. Good night, Elliot. Good night, Griffin. I watched him walk toward his car. And for the first time since spotting him across that dance floor, I wasn't anxious. I was steady. Because whatever this was, it wasn't accidental anymore. It was chosen. And Monday was coming whether we were ready or not. I didn't sleep much, not because I was anxious, but because my brain kept replaying everything in quiet loops. The first look across the dance floor, his hand at my back, the kiss in the lounge, the way he said I'm not going anywhere like it wasn't dramatic, just factual. I expected regret to creep in overnight. Didn't. Instead, there was this steady awareness humming under my skin. Something had shifted, and it wasn't fragile. My phone buzzed at 9:12 a.m. Griffin, morning. I assume you survived the tequila. I stared at the screen longer than necessary before replying. Me? Barely. Hydration management was critical. 3 dots appeared almost immediately. Griffin, good. I'd hate for our first scandal to be dehydration related. I smiled into my pillow like an idiot. There was no awkwardness in the texts. No pretending it hadn't happened. No corporate distance. Just normal. And that somehow made it feel even more real. Monday arrived faster than I wanted. I stood outside the office building for a full 30 seconds before going in, mentally preparing for the strangest workday of my life. Would he avoid me? Would he overcompensate with formality? Would we pretend Friday was a collective hallucination? I stepped into the elevator. 2 coworkers from marketing joined me, chatting about a client pitch. I nodded along, heart beating a little faster than usual. When the doors opened on our floor, I saw him immediately. Griffin was standing near the glass conference room, reviewing something on his tablet. Navy suit, crisp white shirt, composed posture. Office Griffin. If I hadn't kissed him 2 nights ago, I would have assumed nothing in his world had changed. He looked up. Our eyes met. There was no visible reaction. Just the faintest shift in his gaze, softer for half a second before returning to neutral. Professional. Measured. Intentional. He nodded once. Morning, Elliot. Same tone he always used. Steady. Controlled. Morning. And just like that, we were back inside the structure. But it didn't feel fake. Felt layered. The morning passed normally. Emails. Strategy discussions. A quick check-in about campaign metrics. If anyone was watching for cracks in professionalism, they would have found none. At 11:30, I received a calendar invite. Subject, performance review follow-up. From Griffin Hale. My stomach dropped for half a second. Then I saw the time. 12:15 p.m. Lunch hour. I almost laughed. The man had a sense of humor. When I stepped into his office at 12:15, the door was already closed. He looked up from his desk. The difference was immediate. Not in posture. In eyes. Sit, he said lightly. I did. For a second, we just looked at each other. And then, his composure cracked first. A small smile tugged at his mouth. You're very convincing, he said. As what? As someone who didn't kiss me Friday. I exhaled a quiet laugh. You're not exactly slipping up either. I've had more practice. That was probably true. Silence settled for a moment, not awkward, just private. How are you feeling? He asked. About us. The word didn't scare me the way I expected it to. Steady, I said honestly. He nodded slowly. Good. I meant what I said. I added. If this ever feels unbalanced, I'll say something. I know. He leaned back slightly in his chair, studying me. I've already emailed HR. That made my heart jump. You what? Not details, he clarified quickly. Just that I'll be recusing myself from any future performance evaluations involving you. It'll be reassigned quietly. I stared at him. You did that already? Yes. Why? His expression softened slightly. Because I don't want you ever wondering if your career is tied to me. That's really thoughtful, I said quietly. It's necessary. There was a beat of silence. And outside this office? I asked. His eyes warmed. Outside this office, he said carefully. I'd like to take you to dinner. Not a secret. Not come over. Dinner. Public. Intentional. You're aware people might see us, I said. Yes. And I'm done compartmentalizing my life. The certainty in his voice made something inside me settle completely. This wasn't impulsive. It wasn't a secret affair. It was a choice. I smiled. Okay. Okay? He echoed. Yes, dinner. A slow smile spread across his face. The real one. Good. There was a soft knock at the door. Someone checking if he was free for the next meeting. The world pressing back in. He straightened slightly. Then I'll send you the details, he said, tone returning to professional smoothness. Looking forward to the follow-up? I replied evenly. As I stood to leave, he added quietly. Elliot. I paused. Yes. His voice dropped just slightly. I'm glad you didn't walk away Friday. I held his gaze. I'm glad you walked over. For a second, the air between us felt exactly like it had in the lounge, quiet, full, certain. Then I opened the door and stepped back into the hallway. Work resumed. Meetings, deadlines, conversations. But something was different now. Not risky, not reckless, just honest. That Friday night had started with shock, my boss under neon lights in a place neither of us expected to collide. Could have stayed a secret, and almost a what if. Instead, it became a decision. And the strangest part? I didn't feel like I'd blurred my worlds. I felt like I'd finally stopped splitting them. Sometimes the most unexpected moments aren't disruptions. They're alignments. And as my phone buzzed later that afternoon with a dinner reservation for Saturday, 8 p.m., no secrecy implied, I realized something simple. I hadn't just accidentally seen my boss at a gay club. I'd met the real version of him, and he'd chosen to meet the real version of me back.